history made, because Damon Hill is the son of the great Graham Hill, and never before in the history of Formula One Grand Prix racing has the son of a world champion become world champion himself.
I've got this bug, you know, this speed bug, and I enjoy the thrill of it, and that's what he had. Where he got it from, I'll never know.
In Damon, I can see a lot of Graham's determination, because Graham used to sort of grind them into the ground, and that's what Damon's been doing in the nicest possible way, you know, without having any aggression or calling anyone any names or anything, just holding his head up high and remaining a gentleman.
I've achieved my goal, and that was the thing that was difficult to contemplate not achieving. You know, all season long I knew this was going to be my best chance to win the championship, and I knew I'd had 2 close goes in the previous seasons, and with the announcement that I wasn't going to be driving for Williams next year, I knew also this might be my last chance for a while.
In the early days, he didn't take Formula One quite so seriously. He followed his father's efforts with a sort of detached amusement, but it was bikes, not cars, that really excited him. His work as a dispatch rider helped fund a bike racing program that for a season or 2 looked promising. Even after Formula One took over, bikes held a special place.
Well, it needs a bit more tickling. You'll hear a big bang and I'll go flying over the camera that direction, because it'll kick back on me. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
The first real time that I saw him was on his motorbikes, and he was very different to his father because he'd chosen a route of 2 wheels rather than 4 wheels. And if you like, he came into single-seater racing at a much later stage than most of the aspiring young stars are these days.
I found him racing bikes very, very exciting, and far too exciting, and I didn't want him to go into Formula One bikes. So I spoke to a friend who runs Wingfield Racing School at Manicourt in France, and I said, do a deal with me. Let him do a course, and I'll pay you little by little, which is what we did. Because Damon, he absolutely loved it.
The man who wins the Grandstand Trophy is a man to watch, for Formula Ford 2000 leads to Formula 3, and that can lead to Formula 1 and Grand Prix stardom. Damon Hill, son of the great Grahams, just starting his career.
Initially I thought maybe I might have difficulty keeping my neck above water, but now I'm really enjoying it. It's great, and I'm really pleased to be doing it.
When Damon first came from bikes into cars, he did rather dreadfully bad from what I remember. He was well off the pace, he was spinning off the circuit every corner, I think it was.
And Herbert really does seem to have put this all together, with still Damon Hill holding on to that 3rd place.
Then he started to just slowly sort of gain confidence, and he got better and better.
Up at the front, it's Damon Hill. An incredible opportunity snatched by Damon Hill.
In Formula 3, Damon's going a long way, and we'll be seeing a lot more of him as he makes his way up the motor racing ladder.
The talent was there. I think it was quite obvious to see that he had this natural ability, and I think a bit like his father, he has that toughness inside that he's able to pull out at any given moment to give him that extra.
I don't think the name helped Damon that much.
Photographer John Nicholson has worked closely with Damon through the last 15 years.
Damon and I used to share an office in the East End of London with where his management were at the time, and we used to spend sort of 2 days on the phone trying to get him sponsorship as a racing driver, and 2 days a week trying to get me work as a photographer, and of course we did nothing, you know, just sat there talking about cars and bikes and the meaning of life.
The meaning of life was money, desperately required if he was to make further progress. At the same time, rock music provided a distraction, as well as an ally and a friend.
I remember back in the 80s asking people about Damon, you know, whether they'd put him in a team Formula One, and not many people would, you know, at that time, I mean, they're all looking for the Sennas and stuff, and, you know, they forget that people can be, you know, some people are just out front like Senna, and there's other people who just need a bit of practice.
And in a way, that famous name became a bit of a burden for him at that time, didn't it?
It was a terrible thing, really, to have to live up to, you know, his father's reputation.
After a battling time in Formula 3000, the breakthrough came in 1991 when Damon got that first, sometimes impossible foothold in Formula 1, and it was a good one, taking over from Mark Blundell as official test driver with Williams, a vital part of the backup which would take Nigel Mansell to his world title.
It was the first real test driving opportunity really in Formula 1 where it's not just a name, you actually allowed the test driver to get in there and do, you know, a lot of the brunt of the testing. It might have been mundane testing, it wouldn't be actual performance testing, it would be reliability and that kind of thing where you just sort of drone around. But then you progress from that onto sort of the more serious testing. And I mean, Damon acquitted himself very, very well indeed.
In 1992, around about the middle of 92, where he felt he was ready to step into actually driving in races, and whether it was going to be with us or with somebody else, he stepped his act up and started pushing himself harder, so that instead of driving at 90% he was driving at 99%, and we then started seeing that the lap times were very comparable, in some cases even possibly better than we'd been seeing with our normal race drivers.
He was clearly ready and able to become Damon Hill Grand Prix driver. He did that with the uncompetitive Brabham while continuing to hone his skills at the cutting edge of Formula One technology with Williams. He proved a lot with Brabham, and soon came the reward. When Mansell left, Hill got promotion. The Williams test driver became Williams race driver alongside Alain Prost.
If I just think about how lucky I am to have Williams, it makes me smile.
What did you see as his strengths and weaknesses?
He had several strengths or items that were of appeal to us, and one of them, of course, was his wish, his desire to work and work and work. I repeat, testing can be very tedious. The days are very long, but this was not a problem. This was a pleasure for Damon. Also, he was very quick.
I really pushed a little bit to have him as a teammate because I knew that we could be also complementary.
I've got a lot of learning to do. I've only done 2 Grand Prix, so in that respect I've got an awful lot of learning to do. But I feel good about myself and about my driving, and what will be in that respect. I'm going to give it 100%, and I'm going to be very, very keen to actually prove that I'm top notch.
And I think Senna was braking very, very late. Hill can dominate the corner from there, and Hill has done it. And that was good driving because Senna didn't give way easily.
And Damon Hill passes Alain Prost. Makes no bones about it either.
His class was apparent as this 1993 season unfolded, but he was yet to win a race. Even his father had never won the British Grand Prix. At Silverstone, victory beckoned for a while.
And there's an engine blowing it. It's Damon Hill. What can I or anybody say?
Nothing except be patient. The victory would surely come. Maybe in Germany a fortnight later when he led once again with just 1 lap to go.
Now, I cannot believe it. It's a tyre. It's the left rear tyre of Damon Hill.
The fates were certainly against him, but the nation was with him as never before, and that support urged him at last all the way to the checkered flag in Hungary.
Damon's first Grand Prix victory has been a brilliant one.
Yeah, I want to dedicate this race to the Hill family, whether you're past, present or future.
Further victories came in Belgium and Italy, and he finished the season third behind his teammate Prost, who retired as champion. And Damon would then exchange one legendary teammate for another.
Watching here there.
But what he was able to absorb from the great Ayrton Senna was all too limited before Senna was killed 3 races into the 1994 season. Damon Hill, in the most tragic of circumstances, had to take over as team number 1, and he was to show new strength and depth of character as the team regrouped. David Coulthard became his new Williams teammate in what seemed a comfortable partnership.
Third gear and only before you exit.
And there'd also be 4 races with the former Williams number 1 Nigel Mansell. But it was clear that the team was revolving more and more around Damon Hill. Williams getting new confidence from the manner in which he'd handled this traumatic season.
It put a great deal of pressure on Damon. You could see that pressure was not something he bore easily, but he carried it very, very well, and certainly is much admired by Frank and myself, what he did in that year, and I'm sure by everybody in the team as well.
Despite everything to cope with behind the scenes, there was still a championship to be contested and the challenge of Benetton's Michael Schumacher to be overcome. The German well ahead in the championship race and driving brilliantly, but at Silverstone had come the turning point. Schumacher disqualified in the British Grand Prix.
Schumacher is going to be black flagged. Now this is going to transform the situation for Damon Hill.
Well, the headmaster's going to give somebody a wigging over this afterwards.
Damon Hill wins the British Grand Prix. Magnificent.
From that point on, the championship challenge was joined. It had its heart-stopping moments, like this coming together with Eddie Irvine in qualifying in Estoril. But Schumacher had been forced to serve a 2-race ban, and Hill had taken advantage with victories in Monza and Portugal. Relations between the two of them seemed good, but great tension was concealed. Schumacher won at Jerez to lead by 5 points with just 2 races to go. The Japanese Grand Prix turned into a 2-part race in atrocious conditions in Suzuka. Hill was brilliant in the wet, but Schumacher was still close as the aggregate times unfolded.
Wow, this is terrific stuff.
This could yet be the most exciting finish to any Grand Prix that we've had this year.
Damon Hill takes the checkered flag, but we wait for Michael Schumacher. Aggregate time, I remind you, is what matters. Here is Schumacher. 3.36 seconds! Damon Hill wins the Japanese Grand Prix and takes his 6th win of the year to close the World Championship gap between himself and Michael Schumacher to 1.
What happened in the final race in Adelaide gave Schumacher the title. Pressured into a mistake by the charging Hill, was what happened next accidental or tactical?
Oh, out goes Schumacher, and Damon Hill only has to keep going to be world champion of 1994, but can he keep going?
Schumacher's contact with Hill left the Williams too damaged to continue. There was no title for Damon, but sympathy and respect. Lots of it.
And in first place, the viewer's choice for BBC Television's Sports Personality of the Year for 1994, Damon Hill. Terrific. Well done. Very good indeed. Many congratulations.
This season, it would be completely amiss for me not to say that my season was immeasurably influenced by the loss of my teammate Ayrton Senna, and it's with that in mind that I receive any award like this year.
The end of a traumatic season. 95 saw David Coulthard confirmed as Damon's teammate, and they looked set to work well together.
as a person away from the circuit, I don't think, this is in no way trying to be nice to him just for the sake of doing an interview with you. I don't think he could probably find a more entertaining person to spend an evening with. He really is amusing to be with, and there's no awkward silences. At the circuit, I have to be honest, sometimes I found it quite awkward. Sometimes he could be very open, friendly, other times he could be quite closed off.
Damon was focusing remorselessly on Michael Schumacher, seemingly at the expense of his own talent and form. The second half of '95 was not a happy time.
Off! They're both off! It's Schumacher, they're both off, they're both out! And off goes Damon Hill out of the race! Oh, and Hill hits Schumacher, they both go off! And Hill is out of the Grand Prix of Europe, and therefore effectively, in my opinion, virtually out of the World Championship.
And he's done it again. This is unbelievable. He's done it again.
In '95, the Schumacher pressure got to him frequently. When he came to Adelaide for the last race, he was already then a different person. I asked him later, he dominated that event, I asked him later how he had changed. He just said he was in Bali, had a good talk to himself, and arrived in Adelaide essentially a different man, mentally speaking. And that new strength or maturity is carried on throughout this season.
If a new Damon Hill had won that last 1995 Grand Prix, a further improved version would contest 1996, mentally prepared and now in better than ever physical shape as well. With Schumacher now facing a tough challenge at Ferrari, Damon was a relaxed presence in the pit lane. Best car, best team, best frame of mind. He had a new teammate, Jacques Villeneuve, who theoretically wasn't going to be a major threat. The IndyCar champion was in his first Formula One season with a lot to learn. This was destined to be Damon's big year.
Some teams don't appreciate they can get more out of a good driver and make him a great driver if they create a better comfort zone for them. And I think the continuity in any team, as long as it's good and productive and everyone gets on, and the peddler in the car, i.e. the driver, is a reasonably quick driver, they can flourish from one year to another.
Villeneuve took pole position in Melbourne and for a while led the race, but Hill took the victory.
And Damon Hill crosses the line to win the Australian Grand Prix. And sure enough, Damon Hill wins in Brazil, a magnificent drive. Damon Hill wins in Argentina.
3 wins out of 3, the perfect start to the season. But what credit to Damon, what credit to the car?
When people make very complimentary remarks about the supposed excellence of the Williams and the Renault engine, of course, it tends to speak poorly of the incumbents, the drivers driving for the team that year. And I would never support that. The car clearly is very good, but it requires drivers to drive it. And the drivers we have had, without exception, over many years have been winners, including Damon.
Yes, the Williams car is by far the most competitive car or superior car out there at this time. But you still need to have a good peddler peddling it. You know, you've got to have a driver there who doesn't make the mistakes, and you can make simple mistakes at 200 miles an hour, which is the difference between, you know, either winning the race or losing the race or even finishing. And if you don't finish, you don't get the points, and ultimately at the end of the year you don't get enough points to win the championship.
By the Monaco Grand Prix, Damon was comfortably out front in the championship. Monaco has always presented him with another separate target. This is where his father was dominant, winning on 5 occasions. At this point in his career, Damon had already won more Grand Prix than his late father, but he hadn't won at Monaco, which became a top priority. And unfortunately, it still remains a frustratingly elusive target.
Damon are thinking very much championship nowadays, and that's the important thing as well. Clearly he wants to win every race, and smoke out of the back of the Williams!
Despite the Monaco frustration, his teammate Villeneuve had emerged as the only really serious opposition for the championship. But Hill took wins in France and Canada, and then he took pole position for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone.
by Villeneuve. In fact, he edges ahead, and the Benetton goes ahead, and Damon Hill is down in the 5th position with Michael Schumacher ahead of him. A terrible start for Damon Hill.
And it didn't get any better after that. Villeneuve took victory, and after a wheel-bearing failure at Kops, there were no points for Damon in his home Grand Prix. Fortnight later in Germany, Gerhard Berger's blown engine helped put Damon's championship effort back on course. But he still couldn't entirely dominate the season, and in Spa, a misunderstanding with the team wrecked his race and left him trailing in 5th. The momentum of his championship charge had gone, the title-winning effort had become an agonizing struggle, and worse was to come.
Damon Hill's future in Grand Prix motor racing has been thrown into doubt after his Renault Williams team announced he would not be driving for them next season.
It makes me more determined to win, and my only goal is to win the championship.
John Alesi leads with Damon Hill in 2nd position. Damon Hill leads. Hill passes John Alesi as they go into the Rogia. Look, under the bridge there.
The only consolation, Villeneuve also failed to score in Monza, but in Estoril he beat Hill to the line to deny him championship victory once again. The waiting continued, and the frustration was scarcely eased by the announcement of a drive for Arrows next season. It just served to further underline that this was his biggest and possibly last championship opportunity. He was left needing just 1 point in Japan. Villeneuve needed race victory at least, and he was on pole with Hill alongside.
And a brilliant start by Damon Hill, and Villeneuve has been passed. It's Villeneuve. Jacques Villeneuve is out of the race. Damon Hill is the world champion of 1996. And Damon Hill wins the Japanese Grand Prix. And I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat.
Damon, for 12 years you have fought, you've trained, you've denied yourself, and you've reached the pinnacle of motorsport. Has it sunk in?
Well, I think, Murray, right now I feel fantastic about what's happened, but I think it's going to take a couple of weeks, maybe months, for it to really sink in, the full impact of what I've done, because right now everything's hit me so quickly, and I haven't allowed myself to think about the championship. Although it's been going all season, I haven't really allowed myself the thought of actually winning it, because I needed to concentrate. So I'm really now just entering in unknown territory, but it feels good.
Damon, did you ever, in your heart of hearts, in your innermost thoughts, doubt that it would happen?
Well, and I never, put it this way, I never counted on it. I always prodded myself and reminded myself all the way along the line that it wasn't going to be given to me, and that I had to work for it. And if I didn't do everything I possibly could to win the championship, then I'd never forgive myself. So this season I believe I put everything I possibly could into it. But there's always that doubt. There's always the fear that for whatever reason it might not happen, and it might not be your own fault. But at least if you've done everything you can, that's the most important thing.
Did you have sleepless nights?
Yeah, I'll say 1 or 2. But that's.
And what?
That's quite
getting
common.
up and pacing about, or just lying there and going over and over and over in your mind?
Yeah, but it's a good thing to go over things in your head. I mean, even at Suzuka, I found myself, despite having got over jet lag, I'd still a couple of nights, was up quite late thinking about the next day, and but it prepared me, and it was a good thing, and it's not all bad being nervous. It's you use the energy to perform.
Now, you had to take somebody with you virtually all the way. Your wife, Georgie, wonderful partner. Where did you meet each other?
We met each other in South London at a fireworks party. least she says there was fireworks. And yeah, no, it was in 1980, a long time ago.
Instant attraction?
Yes, instant attraction, and we've been together ever since.
Now, Damon, you've got 3 children, Oliver, Joshua, Tabitha, so presumably family means a great deal to you.
Yeah, it does, and you know, I miss them a lot when I'm away, but I appreciate them all the more when I'm back home, and you know, I love having the children around me, and you know, I get a lot from them.
You know, regardless of the championship, I think Damon is a champion as a human being, because, you know, motor racing really isn't everything in life. You know, I know it's a silly thing to say in a motor racing program, but, you know, in the end, we all get measured by some other statistic, and it's not just how many pole positions you get. And I think on that level, Damon is a great person, great human being, and already won many championships, I think.
I wasn't going to watch. I never watch on television when it's live. I never watch. I can't. But I was awake at 2, and then I thought, well, I don't know. And I got up at 4, and they said, well, we knew you'd get up. And of course I sat there and watched it. It was just so exciting, wasn't it? I mean, it really was. I mean, you made such a brilliant start. And of course when Villeneuve went off, poor chap, my eldest daughter rang and said, Mummy, he's world champion. Tanya, the nanny, was in tears and saying he's world champion, and then my younger daughter rang and she couldn't even speak. She was so choked, absolutely, you know, she was full up. And myself, I was just numb. I was just numb, because you know, it's just, I don't know what happens to you, but I just went, it's not a coldness, it's just a numbness. And, you know, to watch him do it, I'm so thrilled now that I got up and watched him, because other races I can't. When I'd go and play golf, and I'll try and pretend it's not happening.
I mean, I've followed racing for so long, and I can't remember ever being as pleased with anybody winning a championship, you know.
Now, you're world champion now, but you've been a superstar in the eyes of the public for quite a long time now. What do you feel all this has cost you?
Well, I don't think I look at it in terms of cost. You know, I look at it in terms of investing myself into what I've been doing in my career. But there is a price, and the price has been, you know, maybe depriving Georgie, my wife, time and the family time, and you know, being quite selfish in actual fact, you know, in pursuing my goals and what I want to do. But it's so.
Can you go into the pub now and relax without being besieged?
Well, put it this way: if I went to a pub now in England, I probably would be besieged, but I'd quite enjoy it. You know, I don't think that would be a problem, and I might even try it.
Well, I'm delighted to say, congratulations, Damon Hill, world champion.